Hello. Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me on at 3:45 p.m. on a Friday. I'm always curious, like, are you guys at work? Are you home? It is kind of a weird time to have a live stream, as most people at this point are still at work, but you know what? I kind of like it that way. You get a nice, intimate audience, and it also means that most people don't see this content, so when I cut it out for the weekend, it's all new to them, so it all works out for me. But so welcome to the show. This is The Rational Live. I'm your host, David Dole. A lot to get to today. Though I got to say, I have a few less stories this week than last week. Last week was crazy in the amount of stories. I don't know how I put together like 7 stories last week, but this week it's cut down a little bit. But we'll still have a good time, maybe even a better time than last week. But let me give you a little preview. Actually, before I do that, let me here you go. Here you go. therationalnational.com/join. That's the Patreon page. Help support the show. You can also join on YouTube. Help support in whatever way you can. YouTube, Patreon, Super Chats, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon so you're alerted when new videos go up. And because I don't put up more than 2 videos a day, hopefully it wouldn't be, or it shouldn't be annoying to you. So hit that bell icon and make sure you know when videos are uploaded. All right, so let me give you a little preview of today's show. So, coming up shortly, Klobuchar calls out a fellow Democrat during a hearing in an awkward exchange. I'll get to what that's all about. Also, mainstream press, both Republican and Democratic press, are claiming that Joe Biden has moved too far left. I'll break down how stupid that is and why they are doing it. Also, where am I here? That's a big story. I'm still scrolling through it. Here we go. Katie Porter does it again. What did she do? Well, you'll have to stay to find out. And lastly, I'm going to do a little wrap up. So the wrap up segment is back this week with a number of very interesting and random stories, including The Simpsons once again making a prediction that came true. So we'll get to that. Also, cinema support is so incredibly low, even lower than it was before, at least based on this one data point. So I'll show you that as well. And a number of other incredible random stories in the wrap up. All right. So it's clobbering time. Yes, it is. It's really weird. I mean, I'll get to more commentary in a second, but it's really weird to see Klobuchar, I don't know, do something good, I guess. But here, Joe Biden kissed my son. What is this chat? Let's get back to this page. Okay. So, of course, I'll take your super chats throughout the stream. All right, let me start with Klobuchar, of all people. A Senate hearing got a bit tense when Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar essentially called her fellow Democrat, Senator Dianne Feinstein, a liar. So I'll tell you more about what the disagreement is about, what bill they are talking about, but first, here is the clip.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask the senator a question? Are you implying, Senator Feinstein, that the U.S. government, that the administration is against this bill? You just said that federal agencies had concerns, and I would like to know if you have some knowledge that I do not know, that the administration is against it, since they have made antitrust enforcement, as has the Justice Department, a major priority.
No, I do not know. What I said is I am told that federal agencies have concerns about these provisions.
Okay,
but
well,
this
that is a
committee
pretty
has
bold
not
statement.
had the benefit of their input.
That is a bold statement.
So,
Well, I'm sorry, Senator. It's what I think, and I thought we're able to say what I have been told that.
By who?
And you may not like it.
Well, no, I don't like it at all, because I think that
am-
it's not true.
And indeed, it's not true. So the Biden administration has not taken a position on this piece of legislation. Either way, I will tell you what it is about right now. So this is actually good. The legislation in question was introduced by Klobuchar and Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley and bars large tech companies such as Apple, Google, and Meta from favoring their products and services over competitors, while also giving more power to antitrust enforcers. It has support from senators across the ideological spectrum, including Cory Booker, Mark Warner, Lindsey Graham, and Josh Hawley. It advanced out of the Judiciary Committee by 16-6 vote, and while Feinstein, who received $23,000 from Facebook and $22,000 from Amazon during her 2018 re-election bid, eventually voted for it, she appeared reluctant at times. I wonder why she appeared reluctant. These sorts of debates really only ever happen when there is corporate interests involved. I mean, how often have you really seen a disagreement like this between two senators of the same party when it comes to, what unions or organized labor are fighting for, or what a poll show or what polling shows when it comes to support for various things. Because we all know when you actually poll people on the various actual specific issues like Medicare for all, like raising the wage, like dealing with the climate crisis in a serious way, like raising taxes on massive corporations, the vast majority of people side with those progressive policies, those progressive economic policies. But there's rarely ever any disagreement about those when it comes to, the obvious reason being they don't care about actually passing or supporting any of those issues because corporate interests are not involved there. But here, corporate interests are involved. So Dianne Feinstein giving Klobuchar a hard time over this and making up the Biden administration's support or lack thereof when it comes to this bill, and in an attempt to try and fight it when in reality they have not taken a position. And the reason likely why Biden has not taken a position is because they also see the financial support that they are getting from Silicon Valley. So Feinstein, of course, in California, that's why she has a more vested interest in opposing this kind of thing. But the party generally also has an interest in being against this kind of legislation because it hurts their own corporate donors in Silicon Valley, or it hurts the potential for future donations from these sorts of massive companies. So it was just interesting to see a rare disagreement there between two Democratic senators in a hearing like that. But I got to say, it's a little refreshing. I hope we see more of this, and it's good to see senators bring up these sorts of bills. Okay, there you go. Quick little story. Next, I got to prep this next one. So I will be right back. All right, there you go. I'm trying to do more of those smooth transitions to and from the break, so there isn't a major shift in the audio, especially. But this story is a media story, and once again, the media is spreading bullshit. Now, it should also be clear before I even get started. Parts of the media. I mean, when it comes to MSNBC in particular, some are worse than others, but it is so just incredibly obvious how full of crap this statement is. Both Republican and Democratic media are manufacturing the lie that President Joe Biden is too far left. Despite, of course, many of those same people in the media calling him the reasonable moderate during the Democratic primary in 2020, and Biden clearly has not shifted to the left since then. But I'll get to more data showing you that Biden clearly is not too far left and he's actually too far right. But first, here is a couple examples from Fox News and MSNBC making this ridiculous claim.
Why are you trying so hard in your first year to pull the country so far to the left?
Well, I'm not. I don't know what you consider to be too far to the left. If in fact we're talking about making sure that we had the money for COVID, making sure we had the money to put together the bipartisan infrastructure, making sure we were able to provide for those things that in fact would significantly reduce the burden on working class people, but make them, they have to continue to work hard. I don't know how that is pulling it to the left.
So Why is it that it seems time and time again the president has overreached, moved too far left, and has not been able to bring those final 2 senators home?
Well, first of all, I think the president is right in the middle of where the country is. You look at what's in our Build Back Better plan, bringing down the cost of child care. I think that's a very moderate thing for families. Reducing the cost of prescription drugs, saying you shouldn't have to pay more than $35 for insulin. I think that's an all-American mainstream proposal.
All right, so first of all, I will get to actual data showing you that not only is Joe Biden not too far left, he's also not in the center. He's actually too far right. But first, I just want to share this because this shows you how things have shifted in the Senate over the past 20 or 15 so years. So Qasim Rashid here tweeting out in 2006, Senate on voting rights, Republicans 53 yes, 0 no, Democrats 45 yes, 0 no. In 2022, Senate on voting rights, Republicans 0 yes, 50 no, Democrats 48 yes, 2 no. Media, have Democrats shifted too far left? It is unbelievable. On this issue alone, it's very clear that things have not gone too far left. It's so absurd to claim that. But look, from Fox News, before I get to more data here, from Fox News, you kind of expect it. I mean, they were calling Joe Biden a socialist in, the primary, in the election last year. Clearly, or 2 years ago. Clearly not a socialist. But when it comes to Joe Scarborough and MSNBC, they were calling Biden the reasonable moderate during the 2020 primary while he was running on a public option on canceling student debt, on raising the wage, on decriminalizing marijuana. He hasn't delivered on that agenda at all, hasn't even barely fought for any of those issues, yet now he's somehow too far left. Notice how they never give you any examples when they claim this. So if you ever watch any of these ridiculous shows and they make a claim like this, wait for them to actually give you some examples. Because they're not going to, because they can't. What are they going to point to? What has Biden done that's too far to the left? It's completely absurd. So, and by the way, a question like this to Biden is the equivalent of MSNBC asking Joe Manchin, why are you trying to pull the country too far right? Yet, they've never asked him that. This kind of question is only posed from right-wingers that are trying to pull politicians to the right. Why are you going too far left? Making them have to then, essentially gaslighting them into then trying to prove to people that actually they're in the center or they're on the right wing. And then what that does is oppose the entire conversation even further right, because these politicians who are already on the right wing have to further prove that they're on the right wing. So now let me get to this this data here. So, I mean, also, I guess, just quickly, worth mentioning, yeah, Biden has not fought at all for his agenda. I mean, his agenda already was on the right, hasn't fought for it. That alone, it should be obvious why he's not on the left. But let's get to some specific examples here about Biden being too far on the right. So, 2 in 3 voters, while 2 in 3 voters support a public option, partisan divides remain on Medicare for all. Now, it's funny how these sorts of polls have to make it, basically treat these issues as divisive, even when in reality, the majority of people still support the issue. So 55% of voters in this recent poll last year support Medicare for all. All voters, a majority support Medicare for all. Now, it's hard to find a majority of support on most issues for anything. Yet here you have a majority of Americans supporting Medicare for all. Joe Biden not even fighting for a public option. And that is at 68%. He won't even fight for what he promised in his agenda while he was running. The vast majority of people support that, let alone they also support Medicare for all. But too far left. Biden too far left, not even fighting for a public option. But let's also take a look at legalizing marijuana. Another issue. Biden can do this by himself. So in terms of, okay, to be fair, there is another piece of it, so he can remove marijuana as a Schedule I drug. He can't properly legalize it himself, but he can do something about this to start the steps to proper legalization, and he's not doing it. He can do it alone. He's not doing it. Support at 68% to legalize marijuana. And by the way, these numbers, look this up yourself. You'll find similar numbers everywhere else. This is just Gallup polling, but you can look up Pew Research, look at any other reputable research or polling outlet. You will find similar results. And also, before I even go on to more data here, it's also important to point out that, polling is not the most important thing. So even before, say, Medicare for All, even before Medicare for All had a majority of support, it was still the right thing to do. Even before marijuana had a majority of support, it was still the right thing to do. So polling should not be our measurement for what should be done, but it's just to show you that any claim that Joe Biden is too far right, or any politician that is similar to Joe Biden is too far right, is just completely absurd if you actually look at what people are calling for. Next issue here. More than 60% of voters support some student loan debt forgiveness. During the campaign, Biden promised to cancel $10,000 of student debt for every person that has student debt. He can do that himself. He does not need anybody else, does not need Congress. He can do that himself. That's within his power. He is not doing it. Majority of support. These are the things that would help him, whether it's taking marijuana out of a Schedule I drug, whether it's canceling student loan debt. This would help his numbers, help the Democratic Party, help them in the midterms, help them into the future if they actually help people with these very popular policies, but they are not doing it, and they're still being called too far left. Last issue here. Most Americans support a $15 an hour federal minimum wage. Of course they do. Yet, where's the fight on this? Biden and Kamala Harris could have disregarded the parliamentarian at the beginning of last year when this was initially a push in the first bill they passed. They could have disregarded the parliamentarian, actually put this into that bill and passed it, the budget reconciliation bill. But they didn't do that. And has a majority of support. Again, another issue that they failed on. They have the power to do this, and they are not doing it. Not even fighting for it. But again, too far left. It's just so completely ridiculous. Now, you may wonder, why? Why is the media manufacturing this lie that Biden is too far left? And ultimately, it all goes back to them protecting capitalism and their place in society. These people on television, these multi-millionaire news actors like Joe Scarborough, they are very comfortable in the way society operates right now. They make good money. They're happy. They don't want things to change. They want to actually pressure the administration and other politicians to placate corporate interests. So even when a politician like Biden is already on the right, they're going to gaslight him to act like he's actually too far left to ensure they are keeping him on the right. So as long as Biden is busy convincing people that he's not on the left, then that protects their interests, and he's no threat to corporations either. This is an ongoing issue, and hopefully, information like this gets out, people learn how ridiculous it is. And honestly, I think a lot of people do realize just, seeing it themselves, because they know what they support. So if a majority of people support these issues, they're watching shows like this and thinking, how is Biden too far left? So a lot of people, I think, can, think for themselves and realize this, but it's still it's the overwhelming amount of propaganda that gets pushed out and treated as fact when in reality there is no truth at all to it, that has a massive impact on Washington and how politicians look and fight or don't fight for these various issues. Okay. There you go. That's the biggest story of the day. I will prep. No, wrong one. There we go. I'll prep this next story shortly. Let me grab some random chats. That's what I'll do. Lumen says, did I see Jimmy Dore go on Tucker? Which appearance? He's been going on there for like the past 2 years. And by the way, going on there not to fight him, but to agree with him. So no, I missed that. By the way, just for fun, check that guy's account right now. You can go or do it later or wherever. But it's like 95% anti-vax content. It's embarrassing. All right. Let me grab something else. I'm trying to read really tiny text here. Maybe if I put them in front of me, I can read this better. Let's see. Marijuana would be super easy to legalize. I agree. It would be. Like there's no it would help the Democratic Party so much to legalize marijuana. It would help them, or even, again, even if they can't get Congress, even just Biden, take it out of Schedule 1. It would help them so much to do that. And they're just leaving that support on the table. Christopher Perkins says Biden is a puppet. David, Biden does what he is told to do by his handlers. That's definitely a part of it, but also understand Biden is an egomaniac. Like, he cares about how he's perceived. He sees how low his numbers are. There's leaks coming out about him being in meetings and basically bringing up and complaining about how low his numbers are and wondering why. Like, he doesn't understand. So he's just from a different era. I truly think, I'm sure part of it, yes, is his handlers, or his his donors and that kind of thing. But it's the world that he's been in for his entire career. So he doesn't know anything else. To him, that's normal. People have to be able to, put themselves in other people's shoes and understand when you operate in a certain environment for 40 years and there's a certain way of thinking that is normalized, that a lot of this stuff is not intentional. At least by them, it's not intentional. For them, it's normal to have to talk to donors. It's normal to have to go to these cocktail parties and schmooze with, CEOs. To them, this is normal. So yes, it's a problem. It's a problem with the system. But I don't think Biden's going out there and, with the intention to tank his approval rating. He wants people to like him, but he doesn't realize, part of it is he doesn't realize that if he were actually on the left, people would love him. But instead, because he's being gaslit to pretend he's on the left already, he's trying to placate a right-wing audience that is not going to support him anyways. And that's why his numbers are tanking, because he's losing actual Democratic voters or would-be Democratic voters that would support him if he were actually to do things that would help people. All right. That's good for now. There's a super chat from Lawn Gnomes. Very fantastic supporter of mine. Says, I feel like politics without lobbyists and culture war BS would be more productive than Fry after his 100th cup of coffee. I don't know who Fry is. Did I miss something? But when it comes to, you're never going to be able to remove culture war BS from this conversation anyways. Lobbyists at some point can be removed with the proper laws. But when it comes to the culture war, this is always going to be what especially the right wing holds out there to distract you from actual issues. This is what the anti-vax movement and anti-lockdown, this is what all that's about. The Koch brothers, I did an interview with Alex Koch and Walker Bregman a few weeks ago about this. Their investigation found the Koch network were the ones at the beginning of the pandemic, back in March 2020. They were the ones that sowed all this disinformation about lockdowns and all the skeptics around the pandemic. It was the Koch network that did that, or that at least started that process, because ultimately they want things to remain open to help their short-term profits, their short-term gains. So this culture war is manufactured by those with a lot of money that want to distract you from what is actually going on in people's lives when it comes to the economics and how it's impacted, the vast majority of people. Okay. Let me prep this next story. I'll be right back. smooth transition back. What's going on? Time for this next story. During a hearing this week, Democratic Representative Katie Porter tore into another corrupt executive. This time, Nick Howley, an executive of defense contractor Transdime. So I got a couple of clips here to show you, and they are fantastic. Once again, Katie Porter does an amazing job.
Do you recognize these words? Quote, "We didn't have to give up a dime. I'm just full of BS." And they took the bait.
I don't have knowledge or recall it.
Okay, that is from a Transdime exhibit. You don't need to see it, but that is from a Transdime, that is from an exhibit in this investigation. That is your salespeople talking about a deal that they just made with the military for jet engine parts in 2018. We don't have to give up a dime. Your salesperson said, "I'm just full of BS." And they, being the DOD and taxpayers, took the bait. Mr. Howley, does Transdime have a code of business ethics and conduct?
Oh, as any company does, of course we do. It's on our website.
Okay, does that code require fair dealing?
Yes, and it says what it says, but of course it requires fair dealing.
Do you think it's fair dealing to be full of bullshit and get the taxpayers to take the bait?
I don't have a comment on that. I'm not familiar with the situation. I don't know what it is. I don't know who the person is. I don't know that. I just can't comment on it.
Mr. Howley, will you find out who that person is?
I presume you have it. You have an email. I presume you have it. I don't know who it is. I don't know.
Mr. Howley, as executive chair of the board, being paid $68 million, when a typical board member of a Fortune 100 company receives $319,000. I mean, here is the typical board member of a Fortune 100 company. See this flat line? You can't even see it. Here's you. For $68 million, you need to enforce your company's code of business ethics.
All right, so I have a second clip coming up, as well as a little more information as to why Katie Porter is such an important voice and an important example for the progressive movement. But before I get there, this is just incredible. Once again, Katie Porter does a fantastic job just showcasing how these massive corporations, in this case a defense contractor, screws taxpayers. So this is well documented. Transdime reaped $21 million in excess profits, Watchdog says. So Transdime Group, Inc., one of the Pentagon's largest suppliers of spare parts, was paid at least $20.8 million in excess profit on 105 parts from early 2017 to mid-2019, according to a 2-year inquiry into the company's business model by the Pentagon's Inspector General. There is an incredible amount of waste in the Pentagon. And this is just really one tiny example. 21 million, honestly, sounds small to me compared to what has come out before in terms of how much the Pentagon has wasted or just lost money. But it gives you a very specific example into how this kind of money is wasted. And generally here, when you get to one example like Afghanistan, who won Afghanistan? This is from the Wall Street Journal. The U.S. Private contractors. So the U.S. military spent $14 trillion. This is why I said 20 million is low. Spent $14 trillion during 2 decades of war. Those who benefited range from major manufacturers to entrepreneurs. That's who won. Americans lost. People in Afghanistan lost. Who won? Defense contractors. Now let me get to this next clip where Katie Porter, once again, just does a fantastic job.
Have you ever told staff that it is wrong to charge taxpayers lower per unit prices on higher volume orders? In other words, when we all know when we buy in bulk on Amazon, it's cheaper per unit. Has Transdime ever told its employees that it is wrong to charge taxpayers lower per unit prices on higher volume orders?
Not that I have knowledge of or recall.
Okay, Mr. Howley, I'm introducing, here is an exhibit. This is Core Doc TVG 00034189. It's displayed on the screen so you can see it. More volume equals lower price. What does it say in big purple all cap letters? Can you read that for me?
The word's wrong.
Wrong. So would you like to modify your answer? Has Transdime ever told staff, in light of seeing this exhibit, has Transdime ever told its staff that it is wrong to charge taxpayers lower per unit prices on higher volume orders?
I don't know what that is. I suspect it's out of context somewhere. I suspect it's something done by one of our operating businesses at one time. I simply don't know.
Well, Mr. Hawley, for $68 million a year, you need to know what's going on in your company. That's your annual salary in your retirement.
Another incredible job. I'll get to that in a second. Another incredible job by Katie Porter here. There's a freaking PowerPoint of them telling their salespeople how to screw taxpayers. It's amazing. So God. And really, this is an issue with capitalism generally. So it's not just this one company. It's not, just several companies. This is the issue with capitalism. The need to want more and more and more and more. And if you're going to get away with it, then you're going to do it. So they knew they can get away with it. That's why they were doing it. But let me show you why Katie Porter is a very important example to the Democratic Party in general in terms of her seat and how she won. So Katie Porter in 2018, flipped a longtime Republican district in Orange County. The first Democrat elected in that county ran as a progressive. Now, understand why she was able to win. Because the Democratic Party establishment thought, oh, this seat has been Republican its entire time. We're not going to waste money. We're not going to waste any time on this seat, whatever. So Katie Porter was free to run as she wanted to, as a progressive, won that way without really being challenged by the Democratic Party establishment in the primary, so was able to win the primary to become the nominee to then go on to defeat the Republican. So anytime you hear the media point out, oh, but this Democrat was progressive and they didn't win their primary, they don't. Yeah, because there was usually, in most cases, those seats are gain a lot of attention, and the Democratic Party establishment puts a lot of money into it. They have their own candidate. And for example, Nina Turner. So there was a lot of attention on her race. So in the primary, she lost the primary because a ton of corporate money and Republican money, by the way, was poured into that race against Nina Turner. So when that happens, yes, it is very hard to overcome because money buys attention. It buys you ads. It buys you basically name recognition is everything when it comes to these sorts of primaries. But if you are running unopposed and you're able to run how you want to run and you win that primary, you will win when you are able to distinguish yourself differently from the Republican. So in many of these races, Democrats lose them against Republicans because they are running these corporate candidates. They're running these very vague, boring candidates against a Republican, someone who's essentially a Republican light, but running as a Democrat, and they lose that race because conservatives are going to vote for Republicans anyways, and Democrats are not going to be excited to vote for that person. But if you have a clear distinction in how you're running, what you're fighting for, you actually have your own voice, you clearly support certain issues that are popular, like, say, Medicare for All, which Katie Porter supports, then you are able to distinguish yourself. You're able to stand out and get the kind of support that you need in order to actually win against a Republican, and in this case, flip a deeply red district. But Democrats will never acknowledge this because ultimately, at least Democratic leadership won't acknowledge this, or the media, because their interests are corporate interests. So they rather have the progressive Democrat lose against a Republican than have a progressive Democrat win that seat. It's always going to be an issue, but this is why it is very important to be able to grow these sorts of numbers, have more Katie Porters in Congress. Whenever there's a primary is the most important part of any race for the Democratic Party, or I should say for progressives, because that is where the real battle is won. If you can get through a primary, then ultimately, in many cases, the actual general election is easier for them. If they can get through a primary against a heavily funded candidate, a Democratic Party establishment candidate, then they have a better chance at winning against a Republican, because at that point they're able to actually stand out and fight for these issues that people actually support. So Katie Porter is just a great example of that. And you see, once again, exactly why. All right. One more big story coming up. And it's the wrap up. So again, I think I may have put a few too many stories in the wrap up, but we'll deal with it. It is what it is. Before I do that, though, let me take a look at these chats. Let me grab some random chats, see what's going on here. Christopher says money buys elections. Yes, in many cases it does. Celeste says Katie equals legend. Budden equals tanked. Talking about Joe Budden? Because there's an actual Joe Budden. But yeah, no, absolutely. Katie Porter is fantastic. But understand as well, like, their power is limited when it comes to what they can actually accomplish, because, you know, there's only a handful of them that are actually fighting for these various issues. So, you know, it's hard to really understand or know what is possible until those numbers grow. And they're also not free from criticism, by the way, either. I mean, Katie Porter, I don't think, voted against the infrastructure package, along with the 6 Democrats who did. So that was a strategic mistake on her part, because ultimately that was the only leverage that that progressive Democrats had against Manchin. So, you know, these aren't perfect politicians, but when they do something noteworthy, it's worth pointing out. The 100 Cups of Coffee is a Futurama reference. Oh, okay. I've watched Futurama here and on and off, but I've never seen every episode, so I don't know that reference specifically. But now I understand. MK says, are you going to play Pokemon Arceus? I'm going to wait for the reviews and then decide. I actually just started playing The Outer Worlds, which came out 2 years ago, maybe last year. And it's very good. So probably not going to pick anything up until I beat that now. But I'll check out reviews when that game hits. Andy says, please do some segments on the importance of primary turnout and how little it would take to swing primaries when 75% of Americans eligible voters don't vote in primaries. I completely agree with you. The issue is those kinds of videos don't get to the audience that needs to see them, right? Like that's the issue. If you're voting in a primary, then you likely are a little more engaged in what's going on in the world and, you know, into politics. When it comes to getting out numbers in primaries, that job really falls to the Democratic Party. It really falls to them to when it comes to door knocking, when it comes to actually getting the message out, because you have to get people that largely are, you know, apolitical, or they're not engaged in what's going on. So me doing a video on the need for primary turnout, it's only going to serve the same people that are already coming out for primaries, right? Like that's ultimately the problem, is trying to break through that wall of people that are disengaged. So that's where the party has to come in and do their job and get people engaged. And to do that, you also have to give them a reason to want to come out and support you. And that falls to actually delivering something and showing that you are going to follow through on your promises. Lawn Gnome says, Lego Star Wars stream when it comes out in April. I haven't played one of those Lego games in a while. I always found them kind of shallow. So I don't think I'm going to get, I know I'm not going to get the new Lego Star Wars. Just there's too much else out that I want to play. All right, should I prep this this long ass wrap up segment? See, the other segments I had the tabs ready. This one I don't. So gonna have to I don't know. This is the time to take a bathroom break. Maybe 5 minutes for me to prep this one. Though maybe not. I don't know. Maybe a quick prep. We'll see. But I will almost be right back. There's a chat here I may read. Do you think, who's this? Cheyenne? Cheyenne says, do you think the left should primary Biden in 2024 and who? Yes, I do. I think at this point, if his administration continues the way it is right now, he's going to lose anyways. So any threat or idea that, oh, it's going to hurt him, first of all, I don't think it's even true. But even if it were true, he's going to lose anyways. So yes, I do think he should face a challenge. And who? I don't know. That's because you have to weigh who has the guts to do it with who also can win. And you know, that's a problem. Like in my world, in my little head, Nina Turner sounds amazing. That'd be great. But does she have the name recognition necessary to be able to win in a primary against Joe Biden? Is the media going to even take her seriously or even, you know, acknowledge her existence? So that becomes an issue. So it really falls to, I think it would have to be somebody who's already in Congress. So someone like, you know, Bernie, obviously I would like, but I don't know. At this point, I'm not sure if he's into that idea now. But this may sound like a weird suggestion, but I think Jamie Raskin is somebody who I think could actually win if he were to do it, because he has respect within the party, and he also actually cares about many of these issues. But that's why I think he wouldn't do it, because I don't think he has the balls to do that. So that's the balance. It has to be somebody who has some respect, that's going to get the recognition that they need to be able to defeat Biden, but also someone who's going to excite people to vote and support issues that actually matter to people. And that's the delicate balance. Someone said Andrew Yang. No, I don't think so. He has his Forward Party, which is, I don't know what it is at this point. I mean, he tweeted out recently that he thinks there was a news story about maybe Biden taking on Liz Cheney as his VP, and Andrew Yang came out saying that was it's good to see the Democratic Party trying some new ideas. Like, what? How is it new to have two corporate hacks on a ticket? How is that new? Andrew Yang is a weird guy. Even when it comes to his new party, he's not swearing off corporate donations. He doesn't even acknowledge that is the real issue when it comes to politics, is the overabundance of corporate influence and capitalism on the system. He doesn't acknowledge any of this. So, you know, his critique of the system is just very surface level and bizarre to me, because he's like, oh, you know, these two sides have to come together. We should be in the middle somewhere. What's the middle to you? Like, you haven't really explained what the middle is. What is the middle to Andrew Yang? I have no idea, because like the middle right now is just corporate ownership over everything. That's the middle. So that's the actual middle, because that's where politicians in Washington are. Now, the middle when it comes to the public is very different. The middle when it comes to public polling is Medicare for all, is higher wages, is higher taxes on the wealthy, is actually dealing with the climate crisis in a serious way. That's the actual middle when it comes to what the public wants to see. But Andrew Yang isn't fighting for any of that. So his middle is just, I'm not sure what his middle is. All right. Now I will prep this story. I will be back in maybe like 3 minutes, maybe even shorter. I don't know. It's a bunch of tabs anyways, but I will be right back. Okay, look at that. I'm back now. That wasn't too long, right? Celeste says, Katie for president 2024. Biden for prison 2024. Katie Porter, sure. Again, does she have... I don't think any of these politicians really have the guts to do it. That's ultimately the issue. So, especially ones that are young, they have a big career ahead of them. It's a huge risk, right, to challenge a sitting president if you're in the middle or the beginning of your career, like Katie Porter is, like Jamie Raskin is. They have a lot of years ahead of them. So that's why I don't. Even though I think they could be successful if they were to do it, I don't think they're ultimately willing to do it because it's too much of a risk for them. All right. Weekly wrap up. Let's get to it. A lot of good stories in this weekly wrap up. This segment, honestly, I think is underrated. It should be a lot more popular than it is because it's a really quick way to get a bunch of stories at once in hopefully under 10 minutes. It'll be under 10 minutes. Okay. It is time once again for the weekly wrap up. These are stories that I collect throughout the week that I did not do a full video on, but I still want to touch on them here. So let me start with this. Tom Hanks. Yes, Tom Hanks. Exclusive. Biden's inaugural committee will mark the first anniversary in office by blanketing airwaves with a Tom Hanks narrated video promoting a recovering, resilient America. Now, you may be wondering, why am I even mentioning this? Well, once again, The Simpsons predicted this. So this was tweeted out by a lot of people, but here Caleb tweeting it out. You can't make this up. Here is Tom Hanks in The Simpsons saying, hello, I'm Tom Hanks. The U.S. government has lost its credibility, so it's borrowing some of mine. Unbelievable. This is amazing. And of course, if you don't know, but I'm sure you do, The Simpsons have predicted many things. Here are 17. I'll link to this below the video on YouTube. 17 times The Simpsons predicted the future. So you see some of the pictures here. Trump being president, coronavirus. So a couple examples. Some other ones, including the U.S. beating Sweden for an Olympic gold medal in curling. Like very specific things and random things, but it's wild how often this has happened. Anyways, next story here. Manchin, quote, I just don't know how you break a rule to make a rule. This is about the filibuster. The majority of my colleagues in the Democratic caucus, they've changed. They've changed their mind. I haven't. I've never changed my mind on the filibuster. Oh, really? This from the Washington Post, shared by Jordan Ewell. But Manchin and Sinema did vote in December to make an exception to the filibuster to raise the debt ceiling, prompting some of their liberal critics to ask, well, why not do it again for voting rights? No, when it comes to the debt ceiling, perfectly fine. They will do it. When it comes to saving democracy, no, can't do it. Unbelievable how crooked these people are. Next one, this brought a big smile to my face. Sinema's favorable rating among Arizona Democrats at a whopping 8%. 8%. Now, this is according to Civics, so this is one data point here. But I've shown you, if you search on my channel, Sinema poll, you will see poll after poll after poll after poll showing how poorly Sinema is doing in her state. Not just with Democrats, but with everybody. She is, in her state, not popular. And compared to Mark Kelly, the other senator in Arizona, other Democrat, he's very popular. He supports, the Biden agenda, just the normal things. But Sinema being a Republican, she's losing support, she is... The biggest issue here, honestly, is that this primary isn't till 2024. Like, she's still going to be sitting there for a while. Even though all the energy right now is against her, will that continue for the next few years to be able to actually mount a serious primary challenge against her? I guess remains to be seen. But it is just crazy to see how low her numbers have dropped. I mean, you could see they were above water, and then now at 8%. Other story here, other piece of information I want to share with you. This was shared by Harvey K. A very maybe eye-opening paragraph here. So he says here, in the wake of 2021 and the Democratic Party's failure to radically address the crisis of democracy, Consider progressive Max Lerner's words in It Is Later Than You Think, The Need for a Militant Democracy in 1938. So right before World War II. Here is his piece, his quote. When the history of our era comes to be written, if there are any survivors to write it, its tragedy may lie not in the men of destructive will whose souls were coils of wild serpents and who used the arena of history for their mortal embrace, but in the men of good will who willed the ends they sought and could not will the means to achieve them. The central tragedy of our age, in short, lies not alone in fascism, it lies even more in the liberalism which has thus far proved feckless to cope with social collapse and the fascism that follows it. Once again, it's not just about the fascists, not just about the Republicans, not just about Trump. It's also about the response or lack thereof to that. Liberalism has not worked to stop it. It has only made it worse. There has to be an actual fight against this increase, this move towards fascism. And the Democratic Party right now, as the major other power in the US, is not putting up that proper fight. So we'll see where, what happens in the future. But this clearly, the way we're going right now, we are definitely repeating history in many ways. Next thing here. From Vice, QA testers at Activision Blizzard's Raven Software Studio are unionizing. So this is another push to unionize a game developer. I covered recently a few weeks ago when Vodio Games became the very first game developer to have a union. It was recognized voluntarily by management, so they did not fight it, they accepted it. And it was a company that, by the way, in Vodio Games already had fantastic benefits like 4-day work weeks. And still, workers there understood it's important to have your own voice, regardless of how great things are compared to other companies. Important to have your own voice, and they unionized. Management recognized it voluntarily. So here, I imagine it's not going to be voluntary. I think when it comes to Activision Blizzard, of course, you had Microsoft just begin the process of acquiring them or buying them out this week. So, whether it's Activision Blizzard in charge or Microsoft in charge, there's going to be a fight against this push for a union. But it's good to see that workers there have not backed down just because they may be owned by Microsoft. So even though Microsoft, I think, ultimately, assuming they do follow through and this purchase gets past regulators, even though I do think it's going to be a better company culture under Microsoft compared to under Bobby Kotick, regardless, workers need to have their own voice. In a massive company like Activision Blizzard, the workers should be able to have their own voice. Last thing here, just briefly mention this. It is so ridiculous. Laura Ingraham retracts naive support for Iraq war. I finally saw the light, thank goodness. There is never any repercussions for people in the mainstream press for being wrong. Whether it's, the Iraq war, whether it's Joe Biden will be able to work with Republicans to get things done, whatever it is, there is never any repercussions. These people never lose their jobs. And ultimately, this is why. As long as they are serving power, as long as they are serving corporate interests, it does not matter if they are wrong, if it comes out 20 years later that they were wrong, because ultimately what they were doing at the time was serving corporate interests, serving powerful interests, in this case, defense contractors. So as long as they are serving that, they will never lose their job. But it's just incredible that anybody can try and take, these people seriously, listen to anything they're saying when again and again and again, they show you they have been on the wrong side of history. Okay, that's it. Now we do chats, and there was another story I didn't cover that I was going to cover if I could have covered, but there's more coming out about it, so I didn't want to preemptively cover it before more came out. But that is Henry Cuellar has been raided. He is a sitting Democratic representative. Of course, Jessica Cisneros challenged him last time, came within, I think, 1% or 2 percentage points of beating him. Primary again in a I think a month or so, just over a month. It's a huge boost for Jessica Cisneros now. I think already she had a good shot at winning that race. She has an even better shot now if Cuellar is being raided by the FBI. So, we have to wait and see what that's all about. I'm hearing Azerbaijan has something to do with this, and so there's more coming out about that investigation. But it is just wild. Anytime the FBI raids a sitting lawmaker, it has to be serious, that they have to have a lot of evidence to do that, because they're not going to just raid somebody who's a sitting lawmaker based on some flimsy information. So they must have had a lot built up in order to do this. So I'm sure whatever it is, it sounds like it's serious. Ryan Nowicki says, do you think a supermajority be needed to pass voting rights bills, and will it be wasted like it was under Obama? If there was a supermajority right now, I think at the very least you'd get voting rights. At the very least. At the same time, it would still be wasted. They could pass Medicare for all, but they wouldn't do that. Biden right now isn't even mentioning a public option. So, it would be wasted in the sense that Biden would not do what he could do the way Obama did not do what he could have done. But still, a lot more would be getting done right now than what is currently getting done, which is nothing. All right, let me grab some randos, and then maybe it's an early go time today. I see people floating Marianne Williamson. That's from Chaz. Chaz, what's up? Yeah. So there was a report out, I think, in Politico about maybe Nina Turner or Marianne Williamson considering challenging Joe Biden. I think those names are being floated more by people in progressive circles as opposed to people in their circles. So Marianne was on Fox News, I think a week ago, and said that she's not going to challenge Joe Biden. But I don't know. Why not? Why not do it? Sure. I think Marianne is fantastic. I think she's underrated. At least was while she was in the primary. But we will see. That said, I don't think she would beat Joe Biden. I have to be honest. I think part of it is just the way that she's perceived by the mainstream press, and generally, she initially comes off as kind of like a how do I put this? Like a spiritual goop kind of person, like you know what I'm saying? But when you go a little deeper, you realize, hey, she actually has substance. She's a real person. She actually cares, but that takes time to peel those layers off. So. But that works against her, I think. So I don't know if she would be successful. Like, you have to understand the kind of machine that would be behind Biden, or if it's Kamala Harris in a primary like that. Like, they already have power. They're going to have essentially almost every lawmaker in their camp because they're already in power. Lawmakers don't want to cross them and then, not be able to get their agenda passed. In their minds, not be able to get what they want to get passed because they supported somebody who had no shot at winning. So it's a major uphill battle. The benefit of it, though, the one benefit of a primary challenge that would happen regardless of a win or a loss, is that it would force Biden to have to, at least in some way, at least rhetorically, move left. He would have to try and placate that audience, and it would pull him out of this ridiculous spiral of the media calling him too far right. But then ultimately, I think that would just be temporary, and he'd just go back to being, who he is now. Paul Mantella says, you sound like you're getting based and anarcho-pilled. Are you? I'm just pointing out various problems with the system the way it's currently made up. You can, pull from that how you want. Honestly, I don't even think about like how I label myself, for me, it's all about in the moment, what makes sense, getting people to think about various issues in different ways, pointing out the power of corporations and what capitalism has, and neoliberalism generally has done or not done, and how it's prevented us from making any progress, and not only prevented us, but worked against us, and has only pulled things further to the right and into fascism. So all of this is just fact. This is an opinion. This is just, I'm laying out the facts, and you can take from that what you what you want. But it's a fact that neoliberalism has pushed us further to the right and into fascism. That's just a fact. Chief Running says, was Biden asked about student loan debts and ignored it, or can you give some insight? I didn't see this. I would love to see him asked about student loan debt. Like was this a recent thing? Maybe he has recent or over the past year, and I'm forgetting that when that happened. But if it happened recently, I did not see that. Because yeah, it's his tweet's still up. You can go look it up. He promised $10,000, canceling $10,000 of student debt. That was a clear campaign promise that he put in writing, and of course, has not done it. Even though he can do it himself, does not need the Congress to do it. Brian Holmes says, Jen Psaki clip on The View recently disgusted me about voting rights. I did not see the clip. But Jen Psaki's terrible, so would not be surprised. And some Democratic voters will get offended by that. Oh, Jen Psaki's great. What are you talking about? No, she's terrible. She's absolutely terrible. She made fun of the idea of sending everyone a COVID test 2 weeks before the White House then said they were going to do that. Let's be, I guess, honest or fair. It's her job to defend Biden and the administration. So she's not going to, go out on a limb and say, oh yeah, we should do those things that Biden didn't say he would do. So it's her job to run cover. That's her job. So basically it's her job to be terrible. There's no way around that, really. It's her job to defend Biden. And if you're defending what Biden's doing right now, then you're going to be terrible. So I guess it's not really her fault. It's the job. But, if that's what you're going to do, then you have to also own what you're doing. And you have to own that you're being terrible. Mist says he was asked in his presser and ignored it. One of the last questions. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's all he can do. What is he going to do? God, he's so weak. He is so incredibly weak. If you're against canceling student loan debt, then just say it. Don't be a bitch. Just say, yeah, you know what? I changed my mind. Young people have too much help these days. Do one of your dumbass rants about millennials. At least be honest. But don't pretend you're someone that you're not. That's ultimately, a major issue with people like him. Sidonia says, thank you for being a rational voice in all this madness. Thank you. Thank you for your donation and your support of the channel. You people like you help me going. Help keep me going. Fanny says, here in Canada, marijuana is legal. Yes, it is. And guess what? Everything's fine. The world didn't fall apart. The country isn't shattered or in tatters. We're doing good. We're doing good. I got mine right here. So government approved. Everything's perfectly fine. It's amazing to me that there were ever any, arguments against it. It's obvious that of course it should be legalized. It's ridiculous that it's still illegal in most places. Oh, Maxime Bernier fan. Well, goodbye. Sorry, I do not support the White People's Party of Canada. I should say the White Fragility Party of Canada. Mr. Rabbit says, what do you think of Austria's, isn't it Australia? I think it's Australia, unless Austria has it too. Strict vax mandate. It's one of the strictest in, oh, I guess it is Austria. One of the strictest in Europe. Do you think America will follow? So the reason I said Australia, I've heard a lot about Australia's lockdown or laws, which honestly I haven't really read into, and I don't really care if they can do what they want to do, and it sounds like they're doing great. I have not heard about Austria's, so I don't know. But do I think America will follow? No. When it comes to helping people, when it comes to public health, is America going to follow a country that's actually following science? No, they're not going to do that. So, but that said, I don't know about what's happening in Austria specifically, so I cannot comment on that. Screen Arts Media clarifies or corrects me and says it's regulated weed. It's not legal. Fair enough. Though you can still grow your own. You can have 4 plants and grow your own. So it's regulated. But anything legal is usually regulated. Like, it's legal to drive, but it's regulated. Like, there's regulations on, what cars, how cars, like the size of vehicles and admissions and that kind of thing. So everything that's legal is still regulated in some way. Alcohol is still regulated, even though it's legal. So yes, it's legal and regulated, but to me, those two go hand in hand. But that said, yes, if you're getting to the point, or if you're trying to make the point that it's overregulated, I hear you and I agree. Yes, it is. Shoeb says, did you hear about conservative Democrat Henry Cuellar being raided? Yes, I did, by the way, FBI. I mentioned that briefly at the end of my last segment. So, yeah, I'm waiting to see more on what that's about. Like, there's a little information now about Azerbaijan being involved somehow, but it's not clear exactly what the raid was about. But yeah, hopefully it's going to help Jessica Cisneros. I think she already would have had a good shot at winning the primary because she came really close last time. But at this point, I mean, Cuellar's losing donors. I think his top advisor has deleted their Twitter account. So, there's a lot going on with Cuellar right now. And I don't know if he's involved, which it sounds like he is. If his house and office were raided, I don't really understand how he can win a primary, but I guess we're going to have to see. And AOC just endorsed Jessica. Yes, she did. Though it should have came earlier. It's kind of late, isn't it? But she also endorsed her last time, so I'm sure it would have came regardless. But some of these endorsements, ultimately, so there's kind of a balancing act with when the best time to endorse is for these politicians, because part of it is I think they do want to sort of be closer to the primary date to kind of be like the name is fresh in their minds and the news is fresh. But at the same time, a lot of the funding really doesn't start until they get those kinds of endorsements first. So, which is why I think it's important in most cases for these politicians to endorse early. And that's when you really get the progressive organizations on board and the money rolling and the small donors coming in, because they need that to then run their campaign with. But I guess the other argument, as I just said, is maybe media-wise, maybe it helps them when it's a late endorsement. But I tend to think it probably helps them if it's earlier. Jusef says, just thank you, but I would like to take the opportunity to ask everyone here, start saying that they took or take the vaccine for the sake of their own health and the public. Don't be selfish. I'm not sure I follow what you're saying. Start saying that they took the vaccine for the sake of their own health and the public's. Don't be selfish. I'm not sure what don't be selfish has to do with this, but yeah, of course. Vaccine is for our own health and for the public's health. But thank you for your donation. All right, I'll grab some more chats and then jump out. Let me scroll up a bit. Lonzetta says, don't think the public is going to fall for Biden's fake promises again. Even normal libs can't take him seriously anymore. I agree. I completely agree. This is why Biden is screwed unless he does something. And he, like, through at this point, he has to use executive orders and the power that he has as the president. And you can look this up. I've referenced this many times as well. Look up the American Prospect and like American Prospect Day One Agenda, I think it's called. And they have a long list of things that Biden can do on his own without Congress. So yes, of course, Mansion Cinema are a massive barrier, filibuster, massive barrier. But there's a lot that he could be doing right now on his own to help people, to do something, to change people's lives. And he's not doing it. So it ultimately falls on Joe Biden and his complete lack of action. Antonio Costa says, how good is your Portuguese? Only good enough to know that Costa is Portuguese, and that's that's as far as I go. It's non-existent. Casa's house, agua, water. I think it ends there. Apparently, when I was younger, I could speak Portuguese because I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. When my parents were at work, I would stay with my grandparents, who were Portuguese. So when I was like, 4 or 5 years old, apparently I could speak Portuguese. And now it's gone. So I always wonder if I go to like a hypnotist, could they like unlock that part of my brain and maybe bring back at least some basic Portuguese? But unfortunately, I just don't. I don't know. Because I grew up in a split Portuguese household, so it was not spoken in our house. It was English. So I did not grow up learning it unless I was at my grandparents' house. Let me grab some more here. Just reading through, looking for comments that I can address. D. Vergalato says, I'm asking because there has been talk of civil war in the U.S. Can I and my children run to the border and claim citizenship in Canada? No, you can't. In fact, there was actually a story came out yesterday of a family who was found dead, and they suspect they were trying to be smuggled across the border during a blizzard, and they died, including a little child. So, no, I mean, if people are trying to get through the border that way, then you can't legally come over and claim citizenship here. All right. Probably going to go. You have relatives here also? Then it would be on them to sponsor you, right? I don't know all the legal, like, I grew up here, so I don't know all the legal process when it comes to citizenship. But I know you can't just like come over and claim citizenship. But if you have family here, you know, maybe the process is simpler. All right. All right. All right. Ann Swisher says big oil spill in Peru from the tsunami coming from Tonga. Really? Did not hear about that news. That was a crazy volcanic eruption. I'm sure you guys saw it. It was like, if I can find it, you could see it, like a picture of the Earth, and you could see the volcano going off. I'm going to find this, just in case you didn't see it. There you go. Here's one. So I've seen it. I've seen gifs of like an even larger of like the entire Earth, and you could even see it with the entire Earth pictured. But like, look how massive this freaking thing is. Now this is over the course of a few hours. Understand? So it's not like all at once. This is, I think, over 6 hours. But it's wild. Nature is crazy. Chief says Sativa or Indica. It depends on what mood I'm in. Sativa if I still want to be doing things and like be functional. Indica if I'm like, you know, just want to chill out to some music, or you know, like watch the Simpsons or something, or I can turn my brain off. So it depends on the situation for me. Screen Art says, did you see Don't Look Up? Yes, I did. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I watched that with my entire family, and they all were moved by it. Like they got the obvious message from the film. I mean, it was pretty clear. Penny Pitcher says, what do you think about myocarditis and COVID? I think it sucks. Don't get COVID because it gives you a higher chance of getting myocarditis. And as I covered before, like this, I think most of you in this chat would probably understand or know this already. But so there's an increase of myocarditis in both vaccinated and people that have COVID, but it's higher if you had COVID. So if you got COVID, you have a higher chance of getting myocarditis than if you were vaccinated. And it's like I think it's like an eight times difference. And there's two different studies on this. One's from Israel. So, you know, it's not just like US data. One's from Israel looking at electronic health data, 800,000 people. They can see clearly that you have a higher chance of getting myocarditis from COVID-19 than from the vaccine. But also what I find weird about the whole conversation is that there's also a lot more. Like, you know, COVID isn't just about myocarditis. It's also about long COVID. It's about impacts to your health. You could potentially die if you get COVID. So, and obviously you're more protected with the vaccine. So to get like hyper focused on myocarditis, even though in that conversation still COVID is worse for you than the vaccine, it's just weird to get hyper focused on that when there's so much else around COVID-19 that impacts your health. Bravehorn says, saw you drinking the other night, David. What beer do you drink? I moved toward, like, I go through a few different ones generally. I drink, so right now I'm actually drinking Stella, but normally Miller Genuine Draft. I like lighter beers that slowly get me drunk. So Miller Genuine Draft, so MGD, or I'm forgetting the name now. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm drinking. But there's 3 that I usually rotate through. But they tend to be like not light beers, but you know, I'm not going to drink like a Guinness on a regular basis. That would be ridiculous. Tiger Lily says, I had COVID almost 2 weeks ago and I still have a cough, fully vaccinated. Yeah, there's a lot of long-term impact to your health. And actually, but as somebody who's vaccinated, a recent study came out showing that long COVID is not a thing with those that are fully vaccinated. So it eventually goes away. Even if you have symptoms for a long time, say even like 6 months, this is a long-term study, I think over a year. And they found that eventually those symptoms go away and you recover. And those who were unvaccinated with long COVID, it continues and it's still continuing. So, you know, hang in there. The symptoms will go away if you're fully vaxxed. But yeah, it's going to be an issue regardless, at least for, you know, in the short term. Katrin says you look a bit sad. I'm not sad. That's my face. That's just my face. My resting face. I have resting sad face. So don't worry. I'm very content right now. Belgian beers are really good. John Purdom says Belgian beers are the choice. I do enjoy a Belgian beer. Still Alive says, did you see Vosh's latest debate with non-compete? If not, it's good. I recommend it. I did not see it. I haven't really watched a lot of long-form political content recently. I think I saw it in my feed and it was like over an hour long and I'm like, I'm good. Like, this is honestly the issue for me is I spent all day in this. I spent all day researching, all day, you know, making videos that when I'm not doing that, there's very little content that's political that I want to continue absorbing. Like I need a mental break from that when I'm not actually doing it for work. So I've definitely, when it comes to long form content, I just don't watch as much of it. Mick Martin says, is Xbox Live still popular? Yes, Mick, it is still very popular. In fact, new numbers came out for Game Pass. 25 million subscribers apparently Microsoft has for Game Pass, which is a lot of money rolling in for them. I forget how much that is monthly. What is it, like $15 a month? Game Pass subscription. $10? No. I'm sure it's more than that. I don't know. Well, whatever it is. 25 million subs. That's a lot of money for Microsoft. So you can understand why they want to continue growing that base and why buying Activision Blizzard made sense for them. Donald James says, what happened to Sahil, Dave? I think he's just at school. So he's not as free to make videos and do live streams, I guess. Like he definitely goes through ups and downs where he's like, he'll stream like, 3 times in a week and then he'll be ghosted or he'll ghost for like a month and then he'll come back eventually. So I don't know. He's probably just doing school work. Paper Ballot or something says, have you corrected yourself about the Joe Rogan smear? The Joe Rogan smear. What smear did I do about Joe Rogan? I watched, like, it's hilarious for people to think I'm trying to smear Joe Rogan. I watched the guy for 3 years. I'm not even like, probably every episode between like 2013 and like 2015, 2016. And I watched him slowly deteriorate. Like, of course, there are moments. He had on Bernie. He had on Cornel West. I don't know, Kyle Kalinske. You know, a handful of people who aren't terrible, and were actually good episodes. So those episodes exist. But apart from that, I mean, I watched him get terrible. Like, I'm very aware of Rogan and what happened to him. And if you go to the beginning of the pandemic, he had on a fantastic. This is like probably in March 2020 he did this, maybe April. He had on an infectious disease specialist. It was like 2 hours of actual real information talking about what could happen, the pandemic, what it means, all that. It was great. Since then, it's completely downhill, down this rabbit hole of anti-vax bullshit. So he's just, this is my issue with Joe. He's not, I don't think he's intentionally trying to mislead people. I honestly think he is a good person. Like he tries to do right, but he is stupid. Like, I'm sorry, he is very dumb. He's very dumb. Tim Fry just wrote in the chat, Joe Beef Brain Rogan is a joke. That's the issue. This guy who's very stupid has a massive platform. Massive. Like, if you talk like this, hey, so I saw this study that said this and this. Joe Rogan will think you're brilliant. Like, that's Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, who are those other idiots that were on, the two brothers? Like, these people, they're so monumentally dumb, but Rogan will think they're smart because they speak a certain way. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing how stupid he is. But I mean, so like, that's, if you watch the show and understand that and you still enjoy it, then whatever. Like, it's entertainment. If you can not take his takes about certain things seriously, if you understand he's just a moron, the show can still be enjoyable for you. Like, depending on the guest, I'm sure he can still have, funny conversations, that kind of thing. He's still entertaining. But you have to understand, when it comes to discussions around the vaccine, especially, he's just a moron. So, it's about just understanding what you're watching. Like, and I want to know what you think specifically was if I can find your chat now. What was my smear about Rogan? Because nothing I said, as far as I'm aware, has been wrong about him. So I don't know what you're even talking about. And by the way, in case you're wondering, the reason why it's important to cover his bullshit is because of his platform. It's because of the reach that he has. So if you can hopefully inform some of those people that what he told you was crap, then, that's why people cover him. You have to push back against this misinformation when it comes from a massive platform like Rogan's. Like, I don't think he also understands his impact. Like, and maybe this goes to him being stupid. I really don't think he understands his actual impact on society and the kind of platform he has. So he has to be aware. Paper ballots. So, wait, what did I say? You said he was wrong, but cannot admit it. You said he was wrong, but cannot admit it. I don't know wrong about what? Be specific. What did I say that he said? Or what did I say that was wrong that he said, or whatever the hell the issue is? I'm not seeing anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Mick Martin says, you called Joe Rogan fat. You said he had a fat butt. Oh my God, you're cracking me up, dude. I definitely did not say that. That's too funny. I like how YouTube tried to hide that, the second one. You said he had a fat butt. Too funny. Too funny. I mean, if you watch my last video, but like watch my video when he had Josh Steps on, the recent one, I was very fair to Rogan there. Very fair. Like I said, this is maybe an opportunity for him to realize how wrong he's been. It's like, so I don't know. And I think I'm being even super fair now, and maybe too fair, to be honest with you. But Karl Marx says Rogan is a gateway to the alt-right. Abso-friggin-lutely he is. 100%. Check out the comment section on his videos on YouTube. When those clips go up, it is wild. Absolutely wild. All right. Probably got to go. So it's been fun being here, though. This has been 30 minutes of just straight chat, which I got no problem with. I was just hoping for some specifics, but I'm not getting them. So I guess I got to go. All right. Thank you all for showing up. I will be back next week, obviously. What's happening next week? What is next week? The end of January. Wow. See if I have anything scheduled. Okay. I think it's just the normal Friday live stream next week. So I will see you all there. And thanks again for showing up. Have a great weekend. See you all later. Goodbye.